Hi guys, my name is Mayana. Welcome to MyoCore. I read a little bit of everything, and today I'm going to be doing a video where I'm going to be talking about Discworld. So I have this series that I'm doing where every time I finish a series, I'm going to be talking about it to convince you to read it or tell you why you should read it, or to even talk about why I love it with other people who love it. And so this one is going to be a little bit different because I am nowhere near finished with Discworld. I decided that I wanted to upload every 10 books. It should be around 3 to 4 videos each every 10 books. So I have read the first 10 books in Discworld. Okay, this is actually a lie. I read these, and then these are just placeholders. I have read 10 books, but I just don't own the other 10 that I've read. Like, I have read these. So the order that I read Discworld was really weird. Okay, first of all, so if you don't know what Discworld is what people call absurdist fantasy. So it's very funny, it's not very serious, but what I love about Discworld is that it's really funny, but it has a lot of themes. I think that it's like the best thing in fantasy. And so Discworld is about a disc that is flat. It is on the back of 4 elephants that are on the back of one giant turtle floating through space. And then, like, I think like the sun rotates between like the legs, or it's crazy, but it's fun. And it doesn't sound serious, but it does handle very serious topics. So I started off with small guides. You can pretty much start off where it's so many books and it gets overwhelming, but you can read them in publication order, or you can read them however you want. Like, it really doesn't matter. People are going to tell you how they think you should read it, and if you're somebody who like needs structure, then like I say start with small guides and then move on from there. I don't know, personally what I did was, so I read small guides, which is about this guy who is a monk, and he ends up coming across a god. I think it's like a small like turtle or something, and he ends up realizing that it's a god, and they have to go on this journey together, and it is critiquing religion. And I'm someone who is very fascinated by religion. I'm not a religious person myself. I don't know, I'm very fascinated by it. I have like my own religious trauma, but I'm still fascinated by it, right? It definitely critiques religion, which I like about that. And then I read Guards, which is the start of the Night Watch series, or it's called The Watch. It's either called The Night Watch or The Watch. And so that one is about this guy who was raised by dwarfs, and then the dwarfs end up being like, baby, you're not a dwarf, you're actually a giant. And he's like, what are you talking about? And his parents are like, you're actually a giant, and we need you to go and live your life. Okay, you can't live the life of a dwarf because you aren't one. So go and live that life, baby. And so he ends up going to work for the Night Watch. And the Night Watch is a bunch of shit. They don't do anything. They're a bunch of lazy bastards. They don't do anything. And they're kind of just there to be there. And the guy comes in and he's like, let's get the fuck to work, y'all. And they're like, no. And there is a cult that is trying to summon a dragon, I believe. Crazy stuff, right? So then after that, instead of moving on with the Night Watch, even though I liked Guards, I just knew that the series has so much to offer. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to read in publication order. The books that I own are in publication order. So then I moved on to The Color of Magic and The Light Fantastic. These can kind of be read as a duology. I mean, it's a series, but they kind of like, every mini series like have like an overarching character that you're following, but like this one, like the plots are like go hand in hand. It follows Rincewind and Two Fingers, and Rincewind is a wizard. Well, he's a felt wizard, okay? And then Two Fingers is an outsider of this city that takes place, because the series takes place in like this city, and so he is an outsider of this city. So he's much like us. He comes from a place much like us, and so he ends up running into Rincewind, and Rincewind takes him like on this adventure, like towards the city, and like they end up on this adventure. Two Fingers also has this luggage that has like a bunch of legs, and there's something very sinister in that luggage. I actually ended up having a dream about it, and I couldn't tell if it was because of the audiobook or if what I was imagining was in my dream, but it was some freaky shit going on. Actually, I've had multiple dreams because of Discworld where like I'm in a fantasy book, and it has been the best thing that ever happened to me, because all I've ever wanted as a fantasy reader is to have like a fantasy dream. And every time I fall asleep listening to Discworld, I have a fantasy dream, and it is the best thing ever. But yeah, Also, I read 11 books altogether. Supposed to be following every 10 books, but I read 11 books just because of like the way that I read the books was just really weird. So then I read Rights, and Equal Rights is the first book in the Witches series, but the third book in Discworld. And so this book follows, there's this guy who's a wizard, and he wants to pass down his power to the 8th son of an 8th son. And so the 8th son, he has 7 kids, and his wife is about to give birth to the 8th son. And so the wizard passes his power down to that 8th son, because if the family has a history of having 8 sons, like, obviously, except wrong, she's a daughter. So now this daughter has a wizard power. And this is really weird because women can only be witches and men can only be wizards, and they cannot cross. And so this one deals with like sexism and subverting the expectations, and like why. Like, this book really questions why, and like why do we have to do things that way, and why do they work that way. And like, this book really just questions everything. I loved it. And then I read Mort, which is the 4th book in Discworld series and the 1st book in the Death series. I love Death. Death is a character that you've actually been getting some of from the entirety of the series. And Death is the Grim Reaper. My favorite thing about Death is that he talks in all caps. He doesn't have any quotation marks around him or anything, but you know it's Death because it's in all caps. And I absolutely love that. And this book actually does one of my favorite things ever, where he's kind of going through a midlife crisis. This book is about Death, and he needs an apprentice, and then there's Mort, who he's a young boy and he needs to get a job, so he ends up apprenticing for Death. And so now Death has a lot of time on his hands, and there's this one scene where he is just going through a crisis, and he accidentally talks in quotation marks, and then he goes, "Oh, sorry," and then talks again in all caps. And I think that is the most hilarious thing ever, because you would have to have read all, you would need to be paying attention, and you would have to have read all these Discworld books to know why like that was funny, you know. And it's just, it's absolutely fucking amazing. I think Mort might be my favorite. I gave it like a 4.5 star, but I think I might go back and give it 5 because I just loved it. Like, Mort was cute. I love Death. He's my favorite thing ever. I picture him as kind of like Bob's from Bob's Burgers. Like, he's just absolutely fucking hilarious for no reason. And then I read Sorcery, which this is a wizard book, and this follows Rincewind. And I think Rincewind is like alone, and like I just think he's very whiny. Okay, and so this one wasn't my fave because I just find Rincewind very annoying, and I kind of don't really want to read any more of the wizard books because he's so fucking annoying. But at the same time, one of them, the one that I'm most excited for, is Unseen Academicals, because I think this takes place in the university, and one of my favorite places so far in Discworld is Unseen University. Like, it's so fascinating. The magic is so, like, everything about this book is so like kooky yet fascinating, and it has everything that you could think of. Like, it has dwarves, it has dragons, it has magic, it has like things that you wouldn't even think of in like, this is a classic fantasy series, and this is why Discworld is becoming one of my favorite series of all time. Even though I've yet to give any of the books 5 stars, I think it's because once I read that book that I know is just my #1 book, like, I'm just waiting for that book. And if I never end up getting that, there are some books I will go back and give 5 stars, but I'm just waiting on that one book that I'm like, this is my fucking Discworld book. Sorcery wasn't really my favorite. Rincewind is annoying. Yeah. Then I read Weird Sisters, and Weird Sisters is another witch book. This is the 2nd witch book. I fucked myself over because I read the audiobook of this one, but this one is about this king that dies, and then the son is put into hiding until he is of age, and then once he is of age, the witches like put him into hiding until once he's of age, and then once he's of age, he's going to rule like the kingdom or whatever. I didn't love this book because I listened to the audiobook, and you can find the audiobooks for free on YouTube, and I don't think that they're for me. One, because I had a voice set for Death in my head, and it just doesn't match up with the voice. But also, like, every single Discworld book that I've started off reading the audiobook to has been my least favorite. I don't know if it's a coincidence. I don't know if it's just me. I don't know, but No more audiobooks for me. But that doesn't mean just because I didn't like them doesn't mean I don't recommend them. Like, you might still like them. Then I read, what number am I? Oh, 7. Okay, 8 was guard. Okay, so 7 is Pyramids, and this one is a standalone. Because the thing with Discworld is you have your, like, this mini series. So you have like the witches, the wizards, guard. Then you have like the Night Watch. Then you also have like your standalone book. So Small Gods was a standalone book, which is why it's the best place to start. And then Pyramids isn't necessarily the best place to start. I mean, you can read it if you want, but Pyramids is very similar to Weird Sisters, and that's why I rated it so low, because they kind of seem like the same plot back to back. But it's about this guy it's about this kid who's an assassin, and then his dad, who is a pharaoh, ends up dying, and so he has to now take over that dad power. And so I had just read Weird Sisters, where it was like basically the same plot, and so like I was just like, you know. So then I read is Guards, which I already talked about. That was the second book I read. And then 9 is Eric, and then so Eric is the 9th book in the Discworld series and the 4th book in the Wizard series, or Rincewind. These series have multiple names, but when you read it, you know, you'll get it. Like, you just call it whatever the fuck you want, to be honest. That's what I do. I call it the Wizard series. I'm gonna call it what I want to call it. I'm sorry. So this one is really short. It was like 160 pages. It's about this guy named Eric who ends up summoning a demon, but it's not a demon. It's actually Rincewind, and they have to go on like this journey through like an alternative universe, and I thought it was fine. I just want to stop. I don't want to read about Rincewind anymore, but then I kind of do. Like, I'm kind of interested in the rest of the series. Like, I'm hoping they get better. I'll probably just get over it. Like, yeah, he's annoying, but like, I'll probably just get over it. Like, I don't know, it's whatever. And then the 10th and final book that I have read to talk about is Moving Pictures. Now, this one says it's a standalone, but then it also says it's a part of like industrial something. I don't fucking know. I read it. I'm just reading them in order at this point. So Moving Pictures is Discworld gets their own movies. So it's about like the corruption in Hollywood and things like that. And I thought that was fine. My next book, I don't know. I think I own all of these. So I own the rest of the wizards and like some of the witches. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna read the ones that I own, and then get back into in the series order. It probably doesn't make any sense. Like, that's my favorite thing about Discworld though, is you can read it however the fuck you want to read it. That's the fun part about it. And so I kind of just jump around. Like, sometimes I'll read them in order, and then sometimes I won't, because some of these are available on Kindle Unlimited, and then whatever's not available on Kindle Unlimited is available at my library, and then whatever is not available at my library, you have the audiobook for, which we've already discussed. It's not my favorite thing ever, but I just love how like easily accessible these books are. The books are on Kindle Unlimited. So these book covers that I have, these are the ones that HarperCollins has been republishing. They just published the Mort series and these editions as well, which I'm literally obsessed with. So they just published the Mort series and these editions as well. And so these should be available on Kindle Unlimited. So if HarperCollins has published them, then they should be available on Kindle Unlimited. If not, you'll probably have to look at your library or on YouTube. Some of the ones that I have to read next, I think I have to read another Death book. I have to read Reaper Man, which I'm really excited for. I love Death. Like, I'm really excited for Reaper Man. So I have to read Reaper Man, and then after that, none of the books are available. Like, not none of them, but like the next like 10 aren't really available in Kindle Unlimited. And like, yeah, I can get them from my library, but I like to borrow them from like bulk for like 3 to 4 from Kindle Unlimited. And it's a lot easier to do that when you know there's no one waiting in line for you. I'm not going to do that with my library. Like, it just doesn't feel morally correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the ones that I physically own, and then once I finish the ones that I own, after Reaper Man, I'm going to read Reaper Man and then jump into the ones that I physically own, and then after that I'm going to jump back in order. So the next video I do is definitely not going to be in order, and then maybe once I'm done I'll do a final like ranking of all of them. I think that'll be really fun because I love watching these ranking videos. It sounds really all over the place, but it makes sense in my head, and so as long as it makes sense to me, that's all that matters. But do I recommend Discworld? Yes. A lot of these, for the most part, the start of the series, they're really quick. A lot of them are like under like 300 pages. And then once you get into the story, they do start to pick up, but you're already into the story. So they read really fast anyways, because you already know like what's like you already get a feel of Terry Pratchett writing, like, you know. But like I said earlier, Discworld definitely is one of my favorite series of all time. Like, I absolutely love it, even though I don't have a favorite book yet. I just absolutely love it. I love his writing. I love the way that he tells stories. I love themes. And yeah, so stay tuned for the next series that I finish and the next set of Discworld books that I finish. So yeah, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.